Welcome to RevCast, the civilization podcast focused on the console platforms.
Cartimandua.
Joby Reeves.
Alexander the First.
Grayson.
Elthrasher.
The Headless 10.
Duke Blue 1987.
Scotty X.
Ty Shine.
Redaf.
Japanese.
RevCast Reflections. So when I first read Dan's note that he was planning the special, first I was like, RevCast? Does that? That's like a distant memory.
Good to be here. So RevCast. Oh yeah, I was on that once. And it's been such a long time. Wow.
It's been a long time since I've heard RevCast. So my first reaction was, wow, did that actually exist, or was that a dream?
I don't have a whole lot of recollection of my time on RevCast. It was just a relatively brief experience.
Well, I have to say that I was just delighted because I was thinking about all the endorsement deals that will come out of this. Things have not been good for me, financially, spiritually, and mentally since I stopped doing RevCast, and hopefully this is the shot in the arm that gets me back on track.
An official spin-off of PolyCast. Sorry to our listeners, I don't mean to compare CivRev with Civ4 every chance I get.
Here we go again.
But it's just an irresistible habit.
So, in general, you're better players online, even with the... I love repeating exactly what people say, so Dan gets to edit this out.
My pointy spears have penetrated your heavy armor and...
It still happens. Nothing makes me so mad than when I get a bonus unit for Discovery. So I get a tank, and it's like 800 BC. And, of course, 3 phalanx units or something take on the tank and destroy it. Oh, yeah, that was effective.
Oh, Joe, we were clarifying that Alexander and I are married.
That's cool. I wish my wife played Civ.
Aside from as an occasional listener, this is my only experience with podcasting.
As a kind of a Civ old-timer who's been in the game since the start of the franchise, especially coming out of the golden years of Civilization 4, which was a really in-depth strategy experience. For CivRev to be what it is, a much more simplified version of Civ. It just didn't really attain any sort of longevity with that particular game once the initial hype wore off after it was released. Haven't really played CivRev since I was on RevCast.
When did I last play Civilization Revolution? It's been a really, really, really long time. I remember Dan and I, before the game came out, sat down with the game developer and had an interview with him, and I remember thinking, wow, this sounds like a lot of fun. Like a nice casual game of Civ is something that I might really enjoy. And so I picked up a copy for the Nintendo DS, and I played it a little bit, but I really didn't have a lot of time for gaming. At the time, I was working about 80 hours a week, and I just didn't have time. So I actually gave the DS and the game to my dad, and I think he really enjoyed it. I think he played it. I think he still has it. I don't know if he still plays it, but I think he really enjoyed it.
The last time I played it competitively was probably around the time of the last episode. In fact, I think it was a little bit before that. I just kind of stopped having time for it. Now, they did release Civilization Revolution 2 as a smartphone app, and I did purchase it and then play it once, and then my phone died, and I got a new phone, which was really just an upgrade of the old phone, and I was told that my device doesn't support the game, so I haven't played it at all in a long time.
Our podcast got criticized for not being win-focused. That's really the only way I can say it. So we had some, what I would call professional CivRev players, and I will tell you the honest truth. My jaw is slack listening to these people. Like, how do you know these things?
The best and worst parts about scheduling, recording, publishing, promoting RevCast. Well, first of all, I think initially it seemed like it would be a good fit for me, but ultimately, like I was saying, I work so many hours that I just didn't have the time to put the research into it like I wanted to learn how to be good at it. I was never heavy on the technical side of the strategy in the games anyway. I think I was really part of the podcast more for comic relief, and it wasn't working so well. Also, it was a little bit awkward. I think it was, a married couple and Joe, and I think that may have been a little bit awkward for Joe and maybe for our audience. I'm not sure.
So the best. It was fun connecting with other players and just kind of talking about the game, and it was kind of easy to do and no pressure because I always had a lot to say about it because it's a really great game. And the very best thing was that we would just sort of ramble for an hour, maybe even 90 minutes, and then it would get condensed down into an episode that actually was kind of cohesive and well edited, and it made us sound like we may have actually had a script or known what the heck we were talking about. It was always amazing to listen to the episode after it was edited.
I think the greatest challenge for me, at least, was just that Civilization Revolution is such a streamlined experience, and just being used to a much more in-depth strategy game. I think, really, though, that Civilization Revolution is marketed to a different slice of the market.
I think the Civilization community's reaction to RevCast was lukewarm at best, as far as I remember.
The worst part was, there weren't really any bad parts to it. It was a little challenging scheduling and finding guests sometimes, but really, I like doing it. And again, I'm open to endorsement deals.
I actually feel really bad about my participation in RevCast. I feel like I may have hindered its progress just a little bit because I wasn't able to put in the time or the attention that it really deserved. And I feel like we should have let somebody else take it from the beginning and run with it and make it theirs. On the other hand, maybe we were able to contribute just a little bit to getting it off the ground, to making it a reality to where it went for so many years.
I just liked talking about the different strategies and trying to dig down into them. We did some analysis of games, but just talk about the different civilizations and different ways of playing them, and really the different styles overall of, there's a multiplayer scene and you really have to do different things there than you would do in a single player game or game of the week.
When you're in the early stages of the game, with so much map covered up, and you're playing against a better Civ, you should just play boldly, because you might get a walk-in on trip and have fundamentalism. There's so many good things that can happen that won't happen if you stay home building archers. So get out there, accept the fact that if he gets his impy army to you in 3600 BC that you will lose. Don't even worry about that. Don't come up with a contingency plan. Don't try to stop that in any way, because if it happens, you're going to lose automatically 100% of the time, so just don't worry about it.
We know that when we go out there and play on the ranked games, it's quite likely the Zulu isn't all that strong. And actually, Zulu players, as far as I remember, hardly ever beat me because you just survive that first impy rush and then they have nothing.
Yeah.
They don't really apply any strategy after that. And sometimes they just quit.
Yep.
Or you get up your 3 warriors up to an AI cap and go 1, 2, 3, take it, and then they quit.
Right.
You go, it's like taking Russia or got no tech or anything, and they quit.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to see an AI fall, and someone took care of it. There's nothing else for me in this game.
Yeah. Well, that's what we all play for, isn't it?
Right. I hate those AI.
Really, I've had so many games where I get one barb and I'm like, oh my god, how am I going to make this work? And I'm playing against China or something like that. And then I run into 2 AIs and I sell them the horseback riding and the pottery that I got, and I managed to threaten one. And suddenly I've got like 85 gold and put an army together, and I overrun a barb on the way and then take a 4-pop cap or something like that. And it's got 4 sea tiles, like especially Japan. I mean, I love running in Japan.
Oh, they're so easy.
If you find them late and nobody's found them, for some reason they like archers. Who needs archers? We're Japan. We don't need archers. They just make legions, so you have to go and fight 1 legion or something.
Yep, or none at all.
Yeah.
I found the Russians with 2 warriors at 0 AD.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. No one sees them. They're especially weak in Rome.
It's kind of like when you're talking to the AI and you say, let's talk about world events, and they say, I think we're the only civilizations in the world. Well, before they meet you, they thought they were the only one in the world. So what do you need defense for? That's the thing that makes me question my strategy the most, is that even if you never attack anyone with your horse army, sometimes you can pick up so much gold off the map.
Well, I think there are some maps where you can see that coming up, but most of the time I find that, building a horse army, I'm going to struggle to get that much gold back out, at least that much additional gold that I wouldn't have got anyway.
Yeah, it kind of depends.
Yeah, but if you don't get enough gold, you can always show your horse army and they'll turtle up and you can sell it again.
Yeah, I've never done that, but I know some people suggest it.
Basically, you look at the map and you find the spot which has the most production potential when it's got a courthouse and iron mine and so forth. And then you plop a city right there and just get ready to time it with the time when you're going to have your 20,000 gold or whatever your other victory condition is that you're going to hit. I mean, in some maps, you might have a city that's surrounded by heaps of mountains and, that's good, and some you don't. You put your city there, maybe you start south 4 pop or 5 pop or whatever, but that's all right. You can run some roads to it and settlers along it and build the population up and make your little mega city.
Sometimes I've played it ultra-conservative and got bronze working with an AI and basically used my archers to clear space on the map for later expansion. But I've seen the aggressive types strategy with the Arabs. Without archers, just horses and warriors. That seems to be maybe a little bit more consistent, or you'll get a higher rate of fast wins at least.
I like to get bronze working if I'm attacking a civ that has a good tech, like the Spanish. They have bronze working and navigation. You have neither. You take Madrid, you might get nothing, or you might get one of those two. You don't want to get bronze working, you want to get navigation. So if you have bronze working, you can't get it.
Right, but that's the first tech that the AI techs is bronze working. So if you don't have that technology and you take their capital, that's a bummer. If you take the Spanish, you won't get navigation. If you take the English, you won't get monarchy.
You still can, but it's at least a 50-50. A little anecdote, I had a game just a couple of hours ago that went on, I guess, to like 1300 AD was when I won it. And in that time, I didn't get any of the great people techs, and I didn't build any temples or anything like that, but I still got 3 great people in that time. It can be pretty useful.
What I decipher from is paying more attention to what can happen in the future of the game. I always paid attention to what happens in the beginning, even though I do believe the ancient era is extremely important, but setting yourself up too, just in case it has to go the extra mile, is something I definitely didn't do then, and something I do now. Playing with players such as Blades and Duke. I think I played you once, Thrasher, with the Aztecs and against the Zulu. And, I definitely pick up off of what you all do, and doing that has really put me in a whole nother spectrum of Civilization Revolution gameplay.
AI on data has a production bonus, which is pretty strong. But when you go and have 4 or 5 times as many, you're going to get so far ahead in tech because it doesn't actually get a bonus to the technology. It's just a bonus to production. So it can build more units, build more buildings, whatever it wants to do. But if you have 4 times as many cities, then you're going to be making 4 times as much technology, and you're going to get way, way ahead in tech. And then you have tanks when it has legions.
Right, and they build a lot of legions and archers and send them out even in the modern era.
Yeah.
Whenever I was playing single player and just getting so bored with it, I was doing things like building a warrior in my city, then building a settler, feeding the settler to the AI, and then starting the game from there, and winning every time.
The way that the developers had set up Civ, they wanted all the Civs to be unbalanced. They didn't want everybody to be the exact same. They wanted some to be good at this, some to be good at that. And I think the way it works out, the Mongols really are a balance against some of the more powerful civs if you get going. And that's the key, if you get going. If you get no barb huts, you're really screwed.
But you need to get those GSs. Yeah. I notice I've been getting a lot of humanitarians and artists from my invention bonus lately, which is a bit disconcerting. I don't like hitting those guys.
Normally when you get invention, in case people don't know, you should get a GS or a GB because the tech that come off of that, gunpowder and steam power.
Unless your name's denied, then it's going to be a GH or a GA probably.
Yeah, the game recognizes who's playing and just screws him deny.
Pretty much.
Before, during, or after I was a panelist on the show, who was the most memorable co-host and why? It was definitely Scotty. I mean, he was the co-host that I worked with for at least a couple of seasons, and he was really great to work with. He was also really fun to play with. Hope he's doing well. He's probably still playing CivRev, whereas I am not. So he has defeated me at last.
Probably the favorite episode is the first episode because it was kind of an introduction to the game and it was an introduction to us, and it kind of was talking about why people should buy the game. I think because it was the start of something, it's always fun to start somewhere, but I think it was also kind of awkward because we didn't know quite what we were doing yet.
What do I remember most and least fondly about the Civilization community's reaction to RevCast? I don't remember anyone just being like, well, you guys suck. And if they had been, then, we just would have laughed at them.
I think the Civilization community's reaction to RevCast was lukewarm at best. As far as I remember, it was Civ Light, and that wasn't really something that the active Civ community was looking for at the time. It might have been good for bringing a casual gamer into the Civ community, but for the established Civ community, it wasn't really a favorite. I think similar to Civ 5, it was not really a favorite for people who've been with the franchise for a while.
It's just positive. I mean, I think that the RevCast community was, fairly small. It was a little tournament scene, but it was basically the same people all the time. And I think that they appreciated that there was some media that was devoted to them. Gamers will argue over strategy endlessly, but even if they didn't necessarily agree with everything we were saying, they always appreciated that we were putting the time into doing an episode, and that was something, that was supporting the game and the community. Hey, I just had a random question. Maybe you know the answer. Does the Aztec AI rush an archer on the first turn? Or does it spend its 25 gold? Or does it just sit there stupidly?
No, it sits there until it finds you, as far as I know. That's what it appears to do. And then so you could still get your meet it and get some gold off of it, or you can go in there and do some sort of drop if you could get a, like on a galley and a double move and then drop your warrior or something.
I'd be interested if it rushed a warrior and emperor, because I know it rushes a warrior in multiplayer.
Yeah.
In 4000.
Yeah, but obviously it can't have warriors since it has ironworking. Kind of the weird thing about the Zulu AI is that they can't have impies because they have legions. But
too bad for them.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Actually, I found that makes them on multiplayer good for walk-ins. You can get underneath them because they wander out a little further.
Yeah. But they wander back at just the same speed. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, but if your army got in between them, you see, because they wander out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
And then they've got less cover for your approach.
I see. And then he's got to go around you.
Yeah.
Takes him longer. Huh.
That's one of the other things. If you get in there and you get your warrior in between their warrior and their capital or something, that's king level and lower for game of the week. Of course, it's a deity, they're just building archers.
Yeah, or Spain with an amazing start or something.
Against Zulu, I might actually use it 4,000 or close to 4,000 because like you said, it's all about surviving at that point.
Well, no, I'd still explore because if you hit 25 gold, that's going to be better than the extra population for those few turns.
Right.
And also just knowing where things are.
But you do run into that little bit of a problem, that scenario where you've wandered out and explored with your GP and you're up against the Zulus, and the Zulus can chase you as fast as you can run, so you've actually got to beat them every turn all the way back to your cap.
Well, that's true, but so I'm going to explore for 3 or 4 turns, and if they're that close to me, I'm probably going to lose anyway. With that exploration, you're going to learn a lot, because you might see a barb, and then
the exploration is key in any game.
You see the barb flag goes down. Okay, well, now I know where he is. Or you might see an exploration tile, or you might get chased.
If anything, maybe you can get him to chase you the wrong way. And then sell it.
That sounds dangerous, but yeah, I guess you could try that.
GHGL or GA, maybe.
Scotty needs to work on that skill, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
There's some civs that can probably repel you pretty quickly. Arabs, I mean, if you're the Arabs...
So Arabs, Germans, and Americans, Chinese, just if you're going to play passive, and...
Yeah. The Spanish can generally do pretty well just going to islands, although you got to watch yourself on a strategy like that, because a really good player can take over the mainland and expand faster than you can expand on islands, and even with the problems the Zulu have, can do that. Or take all 3 AI caps, and then your capital is the only thing left. How quickly can somebody with all those cities put together 2 catapult armies and just come and take the last cap?
You're going to have trouble trying to outspend on the land with the Zulus when you're going to have to go up to your 3 pops and then go to 4 and then build your settler.
If he stays in ancient.
No, probably not staying in ancient, expanding.
Well, unless you're really lucky and you pop coal from a hut.
Yeah, not very likely. Once you get rolling, you could drop a 3-pop city, rush a settler out, stay at 2-pop, and keep going like that.
Yeah.
That's an option, too. You could put a city on fish or something like that, so it'll grow anyway. But really, you don't need 1 million cities to go and get that last capital. How quickly is he going to be able to put what he needs to defend against a pikeman army, probably? Try to go grab the masonry bonus. You can probably beat him to that. Then he doesn't have that wall. He's not going to build his own wall. I think there's some options there. I generally would, if I'm up against a player of similar skill, I'd rather have the mainland and have him trying to run around on islands.
Mm-hmm.
Probably going to get some capitals and get some good techs that way.
A milestone I've always had for myself when I've been playing against the Arabs is whenever I can research religion myself. If I can get to the point where I can switch to fundamentalism whenever I want to and kind of match their punches blow for blow, I feel like I've really leveled the playing field and kind of neutralized the Arabs' advantage. Typically doesn't come in the BC, though.
Unless you take one of their cities.
Unless you take one of their cities. And if I can do that, if I can galley drop one of their cities, I know I'm golden. Or I feel like I've got a better chance of winning the game. If I can get either religion from them or if I've survived long enough to tech it. I really feel like the Arabs, they just don't have many amazing bonuses outside of knowledge of religion. Knowledge of mathematics is good, but it's not necessarily a game changer. It's just like a nice little step forward. +1 knight attack and horseman attack, those are nice things too. They can be game changers, but I really feel like once you can get to religion, that seems like a good place where you can start to feel like, well, now the Arabs don't have as much over me anymore.
I agree. You figure their real bonuses are that they get free technologies, and once you get those technologies yourself, then they have no more bonuses, right? Not like the Romans who can still build half-price wonders, or the Chinese who still have +1 population per new city, and once you can get mathematics yourself, then what does it matter if they got it for free?
That's a good point, but I'm still probably in democracy gunning for steam power.
You just have to have those cruisers, huh?
He does. You got to be ready for his cruiser attacks.
I totally hear what you're saying. I feel like once I have a cruiser fleet, then he can forget about it. He can go home.
Life is good.
Until he gets his cruiser fleet, he's not going to touch me.
Yeah. I don't often switch back to fundamentalism after the Knights. Some people do it in Attack with Tanks and fundamentalism, and I usually switch to Republic instead and get a couple more cities while I'm getting some attacking going or something like that. Just at that point, the +1 attack isn't so important. It's just really important early on in the game with your single warriors or with your horse armies where +3 attack is huge.
The longbows are going to just
painful
suck with your non-vet armies trying to take them down. Oh, good luck.
That's a real big risk.
Rob was the Arabs and elthrashers the Romans and vice versa.
We've played it both ways and the Arabs always win, at least so far.
Funny too, I played with Morte as Arabs versus Spanish both ways and the Arabs won each time.
They're good not just because you can go right at your opponent and take over his cities. Maybe you can't. Some people can defend pretty well and get the counters up and are ready for it. But the Arabs can also just go and take every other city on the map and just have the run of things. Expand without any defense because you know the whole map is yours and you can just send settlers wherever you want and never build any defenders and just box in your opponent. You're going to win, period. The guy who's boxed in is just not going to be able to take the game unless he can break out somehow.
Right.
And if they have one of those 18 attack horse armies, won't that be overrunning the single warrior in your capital?
Not if you're at 2.5, I don't think, because 2.57...
Not at full defense, maybe.
Well, if you're at 2, it will. If it's still fortifying, not fortified. I see.
And that's bad.
Hope for an artist to flip back the city or something.
I remember a famous German strategy that started off with this witty quote, something about Germany, it's not only great for Hasselhoff. I forget who wrote that one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I butchered it. What was the quote, Thrasher?
Germany, I suppose you just think it's good for beer and their David Hasselhoff obsession or something like that.
Right.
That strategy actually is really old and probably not too relevant anymore.
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel badly for the new players because they look at some of these old strats like Zozo's Japanese and then your German one. I think Red right now he's doing all that work, going through all those strats, and he's using MD's Greek one right now. But some of them are a little outdated.
Yeah, well, they have to learn just like we did.
That's right.
You got to learn how to lose before you can win, right?
All right. Well, I guess we want to close up on Don't Play the French, and then we'll talk about the next Civ next time.
I think the Mongols have a worse reputation among the average player.
Yeah.
People will still play the French first.
Despite the French being far worse.
I remember when I was just playing random, I got the Mongols, and someone got on the mic and was like, "You can't win a game with the Mongols."
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Did you win that one?
It froze.
Oh, of course.
Maybe that's why you can't win. I've gotten nice messages from people afterwards saying, "Oh my god, I can't believe you did that," when I beat them.
My best ever was I got the Mongols, and my opponent had Zulu, and he beat me because he started close. And so it was just like, whatever, I mean, that happens. And he immediately challenged me to a Mongol versus Mongol game, which was fun, and I won it.
But it does take more skill, and I think some players are starting to realize that. Not necessarily the experienced players, because they already knew it. They just like playing other civs. But some of the newer players I've seen online, they realize it starts taking more skill, and I've had converts. But there are a few new people who want to play Mongols only.
Cool.
I don't know why. I thought this was my own insanity.
Do you think that the Mongols are a better head-to-head civ?
Oh, yeah, so much better head-to-head than free-for-all.
I 100% agree with that.
It's only because of how many barbs you get.
Yeah.
I've done Mongols in free-for-all quite often, and it's more likely that you'll only get 2 to 3 barbs in free-for-all because you have 3 other players going for the barb huts versus one other player who might start right beside you or might start on the opposite side of the map.
And non-vet horse army very likely as well.
Yeah, exactly. You can't use the extra little barbs to get you up to a vet Keshik army, and that's actually one downfall for the Mongols. I might come out with 4 Keshik armies, but they're all not vet. So you'll have to use more tricks to abuse AI. Sometimes I'll leave an AI alone and declare war on them. They'll send me all their little warriors, and they'll just keep pushing them out. And then they'll just use the Keshik armies to vet up, and then elite up, and then go after the city after that. Mongols are throw out as many possible little cities as possible, and then watch somebody try and GA flip one of them. The only ones that can properly outproduce them are the Americans with the triple factory. Get to industrial, knights, mountains, it's all good. And it usually wins games.
Yeah.
I've rarely lost a game after I've been industrial, unless somebody managed to get a great builder in GB to Oxford.
Sometimes I think that America doesn't really need to, or it's... Anyway, we've done an America episode. We don't need to...
That's the cool thing about Spain, how powerful those naming tiles are. I mean, I don't know how many tiles, I haven't counted how many tiles away from your capital it needs to be, but you can name a tile and you get 30 gold. And that's like taking a bar. All you gotta do is step on a tile, you know? And just get on the islands and, you could get your 100 gold just by doing that.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Spawn next to a naming tile, but you can't trigger it on the first turn.
Yeah, not on the first turn. But it's huge to get that. The biggest thing for Spain is that first naming tile is 20 gold, and you can settle and build a warrior and take a cap.
That's just as good as a friendly, basically. That's pretty big.
That makes your walking much more dangerous to everybody else in the game.
I've actually had a guy do that against me, and I think he had a population like in 17 or 19 Moscow before the game was over.
Yeah, and did he win?
No, he didn't win, but it was kind of cool. I kind of felt bad for him. I almost wanted to quit, because when do you ever see a population 19 Moscow in multiplayer?
Yeah, but and how much science does the city make?
I don't think it had a water tile.
Well, you start getting science anyway. I think I was playing Russia, and I had one turn left to go in Oxford, and my opponent found Angkor Wat and got Oxford University. And I was, now what do I do?
Now what do I do?
Try and take a city real quick.
No, he didn't get bombers.
Oh. Oh, okay. No, you're screwed.
Yeah, there were no bombers to be had anywhere. He came and destroyed me with tanks and battleships later, because what was I going to do? He was ahead in tech. Couldn't believe it. One turn faster. That's why you need to store your production early.
And he probably had no idea what was going on.
He knew he was beating me.
Oh, Oxford. What's that mean?
Yeah. Very long ago, when I was not a very experienced player, I had a 0 gold start with the Russians, and I slowly expanded on hammers, and my first 2 cities out got flipped. How awesome is that? I won the game, by the way.
In like 1700 AD or something?
It was later than that, I'm sure. Can't be like, I'm going to be the Russians, and I'm going to expand, and I'm going to build archer armies everywhere, and I'm going to make them all veteran. That would take so long to do. It'll be, 2100 AD by the time you get all that done. And your opponent will win on score or something, which I don't know if that's ever happened in a multiplayer game, but...
That would be quite the game.
That takes care of it, so the only question remaining is Russia a great civ or greatest civ?
Definitely one of those.
The greatest of the worst.
Yes, the best of the worst.
Best of the bottom 3.
Just something kind of cool. One of my old gaming buddies that I haven't talked to in a few years happened to start listening to RevCast and emailed me.
Most memorable time you told someone in your real life about being a RevCast panelist? I mean, I don't really consider myself a real RevCast co-host. I was only on for a little bit. I consider myself sort of more of a guest co-host for that show. I don't know if I ever mentioned RevCast. I probably did. I just don't remember. I will say, just while we're on the topic, when I tell people that if you go to like work retreats or things like that, sometimes they'll play icebreaker games and you have to say like a truth and a lie or something. I will tell people that I am a closet gamer and I have a alternate identity online as Cartimandua, and if they do a search for Cartimandua, they will find a lot of Civ related content with my name attached to it. So people are always a little bit astonished to find out that I was on a gaming podcast, and then when I told them I was on One More Turn, that was even more surprising. One time I was applying for a job interview and they asked me to write an essay about something unique about myself, and I wrote the essay on being a Civ podcaster. I was offered the job almost immediately, so that was really funny.
I'm sure that I mentioned it a few times. I'm not one to brag, so sorry. I don't really have any memorable things about that. I never kept it a secret. I have this podcast about a game you're not interested in, and you'd have to kind of be interested in it to enjoy the podcast.
Talking about selling units almost immediately after their usefulness has expired. That's kind of a new concept. I like to hold on to units as just choke points or as just lookouts, but you're talking about the efficiency of once the unit has met its need, you just go ahead and just say get rid of it and get the X amount of gold that is possible from it to be able to use it for other stuff as quick as possible.
Not always. Choke points are great. Lookouts are great. Even if it's some part of the map that other civs aren't, if you're worried about where the other guy is or you want to know more about the map, leave that archer on a hill or warrior on a hill just so you can have more visible stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I've ever sold a horse army just because I wanted the 60 gold.
If you sell units for kind of short-term goals, not just, done Russian. If you need 60 gold, if that's going to get me, 2 more cities the next 3 or 4 turns, then that might be better than having just a horse army sit around or pressing my opponent. If you can press your opponents and try to gobble up these cities or steal settlers, then it's definitely worth it to keep it around. If you don't have too much more use for it, then consider finding a way to do something with that 60 gold.
aren't as good. I don't like to see the scientist or the humanitarian. Never see the leader. The artist is kind of a wild card because you could be playing against someone who gets, the arc or something like that, and then you could never use it.
I've also played against some people who do the tricks when they go and they find a capital. You go, oh gosh, that capital flipped. You flip it, and it's their horse army that's sitting outside of it. And bang, and then, oh well, too bad, your artist is completely wasted, well, except it took out a horse of theirs or something.
Yeah, you want to use the artist the same turn they take the city if possible.
Oh, yeah, but what I mean is they take it, but they take it with the weaker unit. So let's say I'm playing in America, I think maybe they've got the artist, they haven't used it yet, horse army and a horse. You attack the city, get it down to one or whatever, one defensive on the warrior or something, the other horse comes in and takes it, they come and flip it. Now they've got a city with a horse in it, but you've got a horse army sitting right outside. I mean, maybe they can defend it, but...
Yeah, that's a little tough to pull out. I mean, what if your guy loses? I mean...
yeah, but I mean, in that scenario, that's very unlikely.
You rush the Oracle, so you can't lose, duh.
Oh, I see. Yeah, good idea. Because you used your Great Builder on the Oracle, right?
Yes, I did.
Good idea.
Maybe because it happens a little later, but I find that scenario with France where a lot of people go there and they'll sort of sit outside, or some of the better players will sit outside and try and do a strategy.
Uh-huh. It's not bad. Against America, you want to take as many risks as you can. So
talk to the AI, see if it met America. If it didn't, then go kill it fast.
Do you ever hold on to your Great Builders? Because I know it's such an immediate bump to have the Wonder built, like, immediately.
Sometimes I do. It just depends on how well I'm playing the game and what's going on in the game. Online, people tend not to respect the Great Wall. If you're already at war with them, they just kind of ignore you. And so it doesn't really have that great of an effect. Or if somebody's teching up really fast, and I feel like engineering will get researched really quick, which will make the Great Wall obsolete, then I'll tend to hang on to them. Or if I'm the most powerful civ on the map, I'm not really worried about the threats of other people. East India Company is a better wonder because it adds +1 trade to every sea tile. It's pretty much one of the better teching wonders, and consistently one of the better ones.
Yeah. You also might consider the trade fair if for some reason you can't get East India.
Right.
Because that one doesn't obsolete for ages. Usually it never obsoletes.
Well, by the time you guys are done, online at least.
Right. Trade fair isn't it globalization or something like that?
Yeah, it's way at the end, so...
Good luck for the AI to ever reach globalization.
Yeah.
Of what are you most proud of what you contributed to RevCast? Of what are you most critical? I think that, we had a couple good seasons there, and it's a kind of small game, and it's not like there's a lot of new content for it all the time, so coming up with topics and new strategies every month there was some work in that, but I think that we hit it pretty well. I mean, I think that I always had something new to talk about, so that's what I would be most proud of.
I think usually it's the co-hosts that make the podcast great, so any success that RevCast ever had was, I would say, attributed wholly to its co-hosts and not to me, but the ones that followed, I think, Joby Reeves and Matt and all the other co-hosts that were part of the show, they're the ones that probably contributed the most.
I mean, I think the strength was the community, and to be honest, I don't know if the community's still there. I haven't been back on the 2K forums in years now. I just kind of moved on to other things. And if that community is still there, then I think RevCast could support it and there would be appreciation for RevCast. If the community is not there, then I'm not really sure who would be listening to RevCast. I mean, I'm sure there are people that weren't part of that community that were listening. I guess I just don't know. In terms of being critical, I guess we stopped doing it and there was maybe still some more to talk about, but I just got busy and too many things going on in my life.
I think its greatest weakness was probably the game itself wasn't as in-depth as maybe a full-blown computer game, strategy game could have been.
Obviously, the main Civ titles have a much broader appeal than the CivRev titles. There's a very different feel to those games. They're much bigger, more epic. CivRev is about Civ condensed into a game you can play in one sitting. I think there's some cross appeal. I've enjoyed both games, but I think CivRev just had a smaller audience.
Any tournaments going on? Anything good happening?
No. Well, Scotty, anything you care to brag about before we do our topics? I think that these topics are brag-worthy, by the way, but we can save them for a moment.
Luck's a big part of the game, but there's also, I played Mopok the most, played him tons of times, hundreds of games, I think. And for playing him, sometimes you can't help it, it all comes down to one coin flip. A bunch of the games, it comes down to that. It's what you do after that shows if you're a good player or not. Usually, even though you pretty much lost, if you still play and you can still come back. Like, he played one game against you, I think, Japanese, and you were upset or surprised that he didn't quit or something like that?
Yeah, I remember. I was just going to say that. Like, he would not quit. He started on the island, had all caps. I had like maybe a 16-5, 17-5 tech lead. I had the Great Wall. I had everything. It was over. I wasn't going to lose the game, but he made me prove it.
Yeah.
He set up a couple of units here and there, and a lot of my cities were empty.
Yeah.
I put up some scouts, so I knew what his plan was, so I started building units in some cities. Eventually, he tech engineered, and he tried to do some sneak attacks, but I was ready for it.
Somebody with America can have a 10, 12 tick lead on you or something, and somehow, if you just attack them in the right places with the right units and things, you can just suddenly rip through all those tick and find out that they haven't really expanded out all that much.
You'd be very surprised at the games that you could come back from to win. Very surprised if you just try. Like, I had one game I started as Germans. I got horseback riding on a peninsula. Jab was sitting right on the other side, and that's all I got the whole game. I got horseback riding as Germans. Now, tell me how I'm going to win that game. I got my 100 gold. I think I hammered out a galley, and I got one friendly, like, at 2,000 or something like that. I got my 100 gold, like, at 0, I think. And I managed to come back and win that one. So, I mean, it's amazing if you play good.
Right. I think the lesson is you shouldn't give up. But also, if you're playing against a really elite player and he gets that advantage, he's not going to let you win.
Yeah. There's certain situations where but even if something really bad happens and you're going to lose if the other guy does everything right, but there's a chance he won't do everything right. It's amazing how many times that they just make one or two mistakes and that's all you need. You squeeze in there and get the win. It happens a lot. But you have to play perfect, though. I mean, you can't mess up. It's fun when you do that, and you're at a big disadvantage, but you come back and win anyways.
And there are certain circumstances, like I was playing around continuing with the game, knowing that I was like really up against it. But I was thinking, if I engineer a great scientist, if I get a School of Confucius for 2 great scientists, and then if I pop a tech or get another great scientist from something else, from 500 gold, let's say, then maybe I can just chain these all together and then throw out some battleships and then start some battleship versus cruiser fleet luck or something, If you can get a big chain of luck going together, you can start to get out of these things. So like if I'm in these situations, I'll start to think, gee, what's this big risk that I can take? And I'll go for that 5% chance that I might win this game. Because quitting is obviously a 100% chance you will lose.
Yeah, it's not only that though. I mean, it's not just the luck. Yeah, you gotta get lucky. I mean, you have to win even and slightly disadvantaged battles, but it's also waiting for your opponent to make the fatal mistake. And all it takes is one mistake. That's the cool thing I've learned. It takes one mistake and you just lost the whole game.
You're sitting outside the guy's cities, and it's better wait for him to pop that code of laws, give him a turn or two to build some settlers, and then attack him, rather than to get overexcited and attack him first. Because sure, his power will be greater in a few turns after that, but for that little moment, that's when he's got his weakness, or whatever else it is that might amount to his little mistake that he's made.
Yeah.
Moving a settler too close to you or something.
That one game, like that America game, I mean, I was screwed. I had one tech. You took out Mopok. I got my 100 gold fairly late. You were in Code of Laws while I was still like at 3 tech trying to take writing or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew I was screwed, but I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try to build some legions and get over there and try to take a couple of cities. But then you settle one right next to me, and I'm able to get there, and then voila, I have Code of Laws. I mean, that's just one mistake. I mean, it's not that big of a mistake.
It wasn't right next to you.
Well, it was across 3 tiles of water.
But yeah, it was too close.
But that was not a big mistake in 99 out of 100 games. But if you're ready for that, if you set yourself up to take advantage of that, then amazing things can happen. And I hadn't exactly won the game for sure, but he had to quit at the end. But it had already been like 2 hours. It probably would have been another hour to 2 hours.
Yeah, those America games are pretty tough. That would have dragged out.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a great game though. I enjoyed that.
We'd be building units in every city every turn.
Yeah, and we both have cruisers at that point, so it's like, and I just killed yours, and
yep.
So it's gonna be a long game.
An interesting phenomenon, which is that it seems as though what the game does is it picks 5 civs, however it does that, however it decides these 5 civs will be in the game, and then the players will replace 2 of those civs. Sometimes the AI doesn't seem to quite understand that originally the Egyptians were picked, but then Scotty decided to be Japan or something like that when he joined the game, and so sometimes it will refer to that original civ, but it's actually not in the game at all.
Yeah. So it'll say the Japanese are at war with something else, and really they don't even exist.
I've seen that plenty of times.
Knowing that, if you're quite on the ball, you can start to infer that's your human opponent.
Well, sure, it's got to be, because the AI doesn't go to war with itself, with other AI that early. Yeah. In the first 20 turns, certainly not. I kind of felt like when I played a lot of ranked, you get so many easy games. I mean, you get games where you move 2 turns, or you sit down, you start building a warrior, and then you get the victory screen. And, you might have like 4 of those in a row, and then you're like, wow, what am I doing right? So the superior competition that you can get at the forum is really... It's what keeps my interest anyway.
Yeah, and I like to just point out concerning rank. I do believe that in the end, as compared to the forum, the match is there in player match as opposed to rank, like an elite playing when you play on the forums, because you just can't help but get better because you're playing against those that are probably better than you, same skill, whatever the case may be. But instead of ranked, you're coming across just complete randoms, and that's what normally it is. There's a lot of people playing this game. There really is. If you go into rank, there's people that come on every single day. Hopefully, they continue to play, but, wherever the case may be, the majority of the time is inexperienced people, and you just don't get the value of a game as you normally would. As you said, you come into the game, put out a warrior, and then you see the victory screen. What was the type of real victory in that?
As an exclusively random player in ranked games, I obviously get the Zulu from time to time. And I've had some really fun Zulu versus Zulu games when I've come up against either someone who picked the Zulu or, like me, got them randomly. And it can be just hysterical when you start next to each other and just like, hey, look, here's all of my MP armies, there's all your MP armies, let's go at it.
Well, I mean, one interesting thing I found is I was playing the French, I think, against Morpork's Zulus, and we both kind of, I think we both walked and we got close to each other. And actually, his Zulu wasn't all that good that close to me. Got under, just because we were so close, and it was just like normal warrior battles, just about. So I suppose they should have been better because they could jump around, step around behind me or whatever, but it all just came down to they charged directly at each other, and my guys won, and eventually got the capital.
They don't get hit point bonuses or anything, they just move faster.
Yeah,
and
right.
In that situation, there's nowhere to go, so you don't really need the movement, do you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the Zulus want to be close enough that they can put the heat on you reasonably early, but far enough away that they can actually make use of getting more gold and that sort of thing. They have to spend everything on sending warriors straight at you.
Right.
Sit them in the capital, which is just negating their 2-move bonus as well.
Not very useful there.
They fortify twice as fast.
Let me ask you this. Let's say you're playing head-to-head. You're playing Russia. You get your walk-in. You get your horse army together. You take another capital. Meanwhile, your opponent has taken a capital and got the 7 cities of gold, and you find yourself in a standoff situation where your horse armies are on hills looking at each other. What do you do now?
It's really hard without having the map in front of me. A lot of times I've got 2 horse armies. A lot of times I use galleys just for flexibility. It's so important to make your opponent defend. So if you can have galleys and they don't know where you're coming from, and then in the meantime you can try to expand while pressing them, that's probably the ideal situation.
Culture gets dogged online. It is the least decisive aspect of the 4 victory conditions. Culture is kind of something that's a boost to your game, but I don't go out of my way to build temples. I definitely don't go out of my way to build anything other than libraries or barracks and maybe rush a random wonder. But temples just get you a few more great people, and that happens once every 10, 20, 30 turns. They can be great tactical advantages to great people, but you're spending 40 hammers on that, which could become 2 more cities or many more things. And you may flip 1 or 2 cities online at the most, just from your cultural borders. It's not worth it if you're trying to win faster than the other guy. Culture just doesn't have time to percolate.
To me, the mechanics of if city flips to strong culture or a great artist or something like that is somewhat arcane. And I have had cities with temples before, and that's even more of a bummer.
You start out with 5 culture from your capital after it grows up to 3 population, or somewhere after a certain amount of turns you'll start getting 5 culture out of capital, and then you get the extra 1, so you get 6 culture out of an Arab capital. And then for every other city, so you have 5 cities, I mean that's 10 culture per turn. That's beating anybody but the French, and sometimes you can out-culture the French as far as the culture count.
Yeah, you'll still be filthy, but definitely once you get up to like 20 cities or something like that, that's 25 culture per turn. That gets you to your great people pretty quickly.
Definitely.
First grace burden is important. When you get that first great person matters, the sooner the better.
The Greeks have like a natural tendency to get great artists flipped a lot. First, because when you're in democracy, you're not making any
culture.
But I don't know. It just seems like when I'm playing the Greeks, everybody always has a great artist. I don't know if that's just bad luck or if there's some type of correlation. But
it may be because nobody thinks they can beat you pottery, masonry, irrigation, and they all go alpha, and then they get gardists, maybe.
You're the great person expert on what gets what. Game of the week, guys.
I mean, if you see a thing like that, it could easily be that just the path that they're taking, and the path they're taking, you probably would adjust your path when you see Greece in there, because you know you can't outrace them to any of the early targets. So there probably is something in it.
Yeah, that could be. And the other thing is that a lot of times Greek players are kind of passive, so if you flip their city, they can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Because they don't have any armies to retake it. The city's got a hoplite in it or something like that, and you're not going to beat a hoplite with a warrior army or something like that.
When it comes to city management, because you talk about pushing science, pushing production, what do you do for your city focuses? From an empire standpoint, do you just go for gold, do you just go for science, or do you do it on a city-by-city basis?
Unless I am in the throes of a attempted economic victory, or I desperately need a lot of money quickly, like if I'm under attack and I don't have the proper units to defend, then generally most of my cities are making science. Because you can have all the gold. If you have archers and your enemy has tanks, it's not going to help.
I was thinking, well, we could talk maybe about buildings or wonders, but with them, it's usually just bare bones. Let me build units and kill the other guy.
Want a barracks at some point in medieval, but other than that.
Right.
Well, who but Civ doesn't want a barracks at some point in medieval?
Maybe the Greeks, I don't know.
I don't know. I tend to get a barracks with the Greeks earlier on. You've got some gold and you want your galleons to be veteran or whatever. It depends.
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, in general, I don't build that many buildings other than a barracks or a library later on down the line,
Very
maybe.
late, yeah.
Try to get the market.
The market's nice, but I get that for free.
Yeah.
And people said that. There's 2 of them were talking against me, and one of them said, oh, his cities are weak. All he has is single archers in all his cities. Just take them. And the other guy says, well, I've been trying, and he just keeps killing my armies. So just come with him. I said, yeah, you've wasted resources on an archer army, and I've built, instead, a legion army, and I'm killing your units, and you're not doing very much to hurt me.
If it's late industrial or something like that, and the knights are coming to my capital, and maybe that's the last one, that's the win, if he gets it, I want to get a cruiser fleet as soon as possible. I want to have a lot of veteran fortified pikemen in my capital because they won't be overrun. And if I have enough of them, then I can just hold out. And I really want to have a catapult army to counter. It's very important that my defenders have a higher defense rating than the catapult army does, because otherwise the knights will attack the catapult army, and now I don't have a catapult army anymore.
Pretty frustrating.
That sucks.
I've had that happen.
No, I think Thrasher told this story to just remind us how good he is.
Yes.
With no desert, an oracle that probably wasn't really working, Egypt with no bonuses.
He beat the almighty Japan.
Yeah, the legendary
Mappa. It's probably the last time I'll ever beat him. I don't know if he listens to the show or not.
I don't like it when Mopok beats me because I know how good he is. His grammar's horrible, and I just don't like it. When foreign members can't write with good grammar and they kick my ass, I don't like it. They should not be smarter than I am.
I hear you.
Must be a New Zealand thing.
They have different grammar rules down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's from New Zealand, isn't he?
Yep, that's right.
That's right. That's right.
Good country.
I can remember a game, it was actually a free-for-all game, with Taishine was playing India and I was Japan, and I had a humongous tech lead. I had Oxford Bombers and I had the Money Techs and stuff like that. He had 1 million knights and a lot of cities, and he kept building knights and stuff like that. So I was kind of slow going against him, but I felt pretty confident, and the other guys were dead.
Wow.
I had such a huge tech lead, and I had all this money coming in and everything. Somewhere along the line, well, I guess probably because he's in India, so he's getting lots of culture from all those cities. He got a scientist, used a scientist on combustion. I had tanks too, and then he built Leonardo's workshop, and I really should have built it, and he had like 20 knight armies that became tank armies, and a few bomber wings, so like, now what? So yeah, he won.
Wow.
He was way behind in tech. Excellent. It goes all the way up the tech tree. That people like basically stay at 5 techs until they have just a huge amount of trade, and then flip over and just backfill everything all the way up to almost to modern or something like that.
When you say trade, you're going to be on gold. Maybe growth or trees if you need it, but when you do switch over to backfill, push everything onto the sea, as much science as you can, if that's what you're trying to do. Get that 22, get that number. If you can get 31, it's even better, because you can maybe get masonry or whatever.
It's always one more than what the beaker costs. It just depends. I've actually run into a few tech controllers that do know what they're doing and will get to some sort of catapults or knights fairly quickly.
Right. That's what we say in the show a lot, is that kind of strategy typically is kind of bad, but if you can raise a couple armies and bring them to your opponent quickly.
I think any strategy that involves attacking the other opponent is not bad. It's just...
Yes.
There's a lot more risks with the smaller strategy.
But if you turtle and don't attack in a reasonable time frame, then that's bad.
Well, you're just bad.
Yeah, well, hey, my Greek strategy.
I think you tag eventually with that.
Yeah, exactly.
There's some fun to be had in the late game. I mean, there's artillery. I actually had a game where it wasn't too long, maybe a year ago or something like that, so I was a somewhat developed player at that point, and I really actually needed artillery to win the game. I had played pretty decently all the way through. I wasn't messing around and being stupid or anything.
They can be fun. You can have fun bomber and fighter battles. I've been nuked more than a few times, and it can be amusing.
Getting nuked and then winning, especially as Russia, this was my MO for a while. I would play Russia, have a terrible game, get nuked, and then win.
My experience with podcasting before RevCast was I had been a regular member of PolyCast and recorded with Dan and Makalua and Imran for a while, maybe almost 2 years. I can't remember. Maybe 2 years. And that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. I had to pull out because of my work. And after that, I haven't done much podcasting, with the exception of being part of Dan's more recent project, the One More Term dramedy, playing the part of Bella.
Well, I was a guest co-host on PolyCast a few times, and I'm also friends with the guys who do the Stolen Droids podcast, so I've been a guest on their podcast just once or twice as well. Haven't really been an active participant on the podcast scene much since RevCast. Just, life got busy with graduate school, a master's degree, starting a career, becoming a parent, just big things that take up a lot of time.
What conditions do you think would have to be met in order for RevCast to have a season 6?
You need the community. You need someone that's really interested in supporting the community, and the improvement would just be to get back to broadcasting, right? Hard to have any other improvement when there hasn't been a new episode in a couple of years.
I think there need to be a new game, maybe a new Civ game, a new CivRev, I don't know. I don't know if that's the direction the Civ developers are going, but it would be interesting. I don't know.
You need a community that wants to hear these things, and you would need somebody that wants to tell these stories. I don't know if there's enough in CivRev 2, because CivRev 2 is single player only, and I don't want to poo-poo a single player game, but CivRev is a fairly simple game, and to my way of thinking, unless you're battling against a human intelligence, there's just not that much there to have episode after episode talking about it. I could be wrong about that, and maybe there are some who want to bring RevCast back, and that would be really cool.
Thanks for inviting us to be part of this Reflections.
Thanks very much.
It's really nice to be remembered.
You can get in touch with me for endorsement deals through the PolyCast, I'm sure.
Thank you so much.
See you next time.
For more information on RevCast, our sibling shows PolyCast and Modcast, or about PolyCast in general, log on to the series' official website at thepolycast.net.
Record date:
Assorted 2009 to 2013. June 2016.
Civilization Revolution sound clips, copyright Take-Two Interactive.
Copyright Civilized Communication at civcom.net.